Our next speaker will challenge our commonly held views on what makes a system safe, will tell us or show us why complexity means unpredictable, like it's inevitable if things are complex, and therefore you're going to have unexpected events, and will also answer the question, so what? And the so what is resilience. So we'll be challenged in our commonly held views. Complexity means unpredictable, and we'll hear about resilience. So for his piece entitled The Challenge of the Unexpected, please welcome to the stage Jean Parrier.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here and to have an opportunity to disturb your postprandial torpor, as scientists call it. In other words, you need to get some sleep now after the lunch. I'll try my best. And I will indeed try to discuss the challenges of complexity and the potential conflict between all these words: faster, better, cheaper, leaner, safer, and so on. There may be some difficulties in this. My background is aviation engineering, and aviation is a very good example of a system which evolved along the history into a faster, better, cleaner, leaner, and whatever mode. With some exceptions, if you think about the Concorde example, it was definitely faster, not necessarily cheaper, nor leaner or safer at all. So it's also a signal that there may be some exceptions to the rule or to this possibility of progress in all domains. What I would like to discuss actually is the underlying vision of safety that we have, not only for aviation but for all high-risk industries. What do we believe makes the system safe? Okay, this is my topic actually, and I will start with a small quiz for you. If you had a choice between several airlines, do you think you would reduce your odds of dying in an accident from a flight in this airline if you rejected incident-prone airlines? Incident-prone, not accident-prone, of course. What do you think? I'll let you give you an answer to this, and we'll discuss the answer later. Back to the underlying safety vision or safety strategy. If this is absolutely true for aviation, and I'm sure it's true for many other domains, including oil and gas, the key components of the safety strategy include all these aspects: more rules, more guidelines, more regulations, more procedures, more automation, more everything, actually. What we are trying to do is deterministic anticipation, or probabilistic in some occasions, anticipations of all the situations that the system may face, and then predefine the proper answers, the proper responses to all these situations, and make sure these predefined answers are safe. And then safety is kind of warranted by the compliance of the system to these predefined solutions, responses, and so on that we have defined. And so the kind of holy grail in modernity is a perfect world. We define safety as a safe world as a world where nothing goes wrong. No errors, no deviations, no failures, no violations, and so on. If the world is perfect and has been defined, designed to be safe, then it will be safe. That's the basic idea we have, the basic vision we have of safety. And so, in other words, deviation from this ideal world is the modern figure of risk. Risk is deviation, deviation is risk in this vision. And in this vision, or in this paradigm, as people say, it's possible, of course, to have a better, safer, faster, cleaner, leaner, and safer world at the same time. There is no contradiction, because they're all components towards perfection. Are there signs of weaknesses in this vision? Obviously, yes. If you look at the big catastrophes that we still have in different domains, aviation, nuclear, oil and gas, and so on, there are obvious signs of weaknesses. The system seems to be very, very vulnerable to unexpected situations. Fukushima is a kind of an archetype of this. It's just the fundamental surprise. This was never supposed to happen. It was supposed to be impossible. A little bit the same for the Air France 447 accident and some components as well. So the question is, what's wrong? Is it that we don't do what we intend to do efficiently enough? We don't do it well enough, so we should do better, more what we are expected to do or what we decided to do? Or is it that there is something wrong in the model, something missing, that we need to change or to shift this paradigm into some way? I believe that we need this shift, and I will try to explain it to you, to tell you why I believe this. The current vision of risk is definitely linear. We have this recognition that the frequency of small events and the frequency of disasters are linked by this bell curve. We have much more frequent events than disasters, of course. That's obvious. And we focus on this high-frequency part of the curve, the daily events, the incidents, and so on, the deviations, the errors, and so on. And we believe that this is a relevant material to control, to do something about the tail of the distribution, about the catastrophic event, the very rare catastrophic event. In other words, what we believe we should do is this, to shift the bell curve so that the tail of the distribution is thinner and thinner. That's the representation of the strategy. There are two main illusions behind this. The first one is the bell curve itself. The actual tail of the distribution, if you compute the actual frequency of disasters in different domains, it's much thicker than predicted by the bell curve. But this is not a big issue. It's just an issue of having a corrective factor, and that's it. The second illusion is a bigger problem for me. It's the illusion that you can modify the tail of the distribution if you modify the center part of the distribution. This belief that the frequency of daily events is linked, correlated strongly to the frequency of disasters. This is a very strong belief, and it's wrong in complex systems. It's famously represented by this triangle or pyramid by Heinrich and Bird, and it's also used in many safety management strategies as a basic tool to handle, to manage catastrophes, probabilities, or frequencies. There are many studies showing it's wrong. I will only quote two of them. This one is very interesting. It's done in aviation in the early 2000s by a team working at the MIT in the US. And they compared, they were seeking correlations potentially between airline incidence frequency and the probability for a passenger buying a ticket with all these airlines to die from an accident in a flight by this airline. And the result is very interesting. There was a strong correlation between the frequency of incidents and the frequency of fatal accidents, and the correlation was negative. And this was absolutely unbelievable for the aviation community. And the quotes from the study, from the conclusion, said, taken literally, it means that you would have reduced your odds to die from an accident in this airline, with this airline, taking the airlines with the highest propensity to have incidents, including severe incidents. So that's exactly the opposite of intuition in this case. And so this is the answer to your questions. Would you reduce your odds of a fatal flight? The answer is no, just the opposite, according to this study, at least. According to this. If you look at figures in occupational safety, and we had figures this morning from Total, which are exactly consistent with this. This is the figures from the French metal industry, the evolution of the non-fatal accident and the fatalities and the fatal accident over the period. And as you can see, there is a permanent decrease in the frequency of accident and the stagnation of the frequency of fatalities. The two curves are not correlated, and they are never correlated. I've never seen a significant correlation in the figures of industrial organizations. So it's challenging. It's absolutely opposite to the intuitions we have, that there is a strong correlation. If we have less problems every day, we will have less disasters. No, that's wrong. Statistically wrong in all complex industrial domains. And the flow in the reasoning behind this intuition is called inductivism. And I built this story and took the story from the famous mathematician and philosopher Bertrand Russell. It's the story of a nice turkey living in a nice farm somewhere, and she's very nicely fed every day by the farmer, and she gets a certain number of corn grains, and she's very happy, very well fed, but she's anxious in nature and also a good statistician. So she decides to compute the odds she has to die from starving based on the variability of the daily ratio she receives. And she starts to count how many grains she receives every day, day after day. And she has more and more data in her database, and as she's a good statistician, she very quickly recognizes a bell curve, and now she's able to compute the mean, and to compute the standard deviation, and to compute the odds for her to have 6 sigmas deviation for 10 days or 20 days, and then she would die from starving. And the computing is absolutely clear. She will never die from starving. So she's very well reassured, and the confidence level she has in this computation goes up increases day after day, of course, because she has more data and they are more significant and she's more and more confident in the data computation. And the confidence level reaches a maximum after 364 days because the next one was Thanksgiving. And this is called the inductivist Turkey syndrome. Okay? And this is exactly what we do. When we compute the odds for a disaster, based on the daily events, the daily variation, the daily deviations or variability of daily parameters, and we miss something absolutely crucial in the model of the world that we are trying to understand. This is the problem. The frequency of rare events and frequent events are not correlated in complex systems. So this means that we need to understand a little bit more what is a complex system. And you've all seen a pendulum in your life, and you all know that this leads to a very regular movement, which has been used for centuries to make clocks and watches and so on. And the question is, what happens if you tie two pendulums to each other? So you build a system with two extremely regular movements. You know what happens? You'll see what happens in a few seconds. So this is one pendulum. And now we have two pendulums attached to each other. The coupling of two totally regular movements gives a totally unpredictable, totally irregular movement, which is called a deterministic chaos. This is not computable. You cannot predict by computation the movement of this system. And this is exactly the definition of complexity. The interaction between two regular cyclic behaviors gives a totally unpredictable movement. The coupling of components in a system gives a totally different behavior to the system. A complex system is a system in which the behavior is not the behavior of the components or any kind of linear combination of these, but a totally different behavior, which is the result of the interactions only. So this is very important to understand. And the question is, do you have in your oil and gas industry complex behaviors or not? Do you think oil and gas is a complex system or not? This is my second question. And we'll see the result of your responses. But if it was the case, you would need a paradigm shift. You would need to think of safety differently, a shift from anticipating everything and basing your safety strategy on anticipation only, to something including the capacity to handle uncertainty in real time. Because you will always have residual uncertainty in a complex system. It's irreducible. You cannot avoid this. And the capacity you need then to do this, to keep control on a partially unpredictable system, is called resilience. Resilience is the ability of a system to keep its performance, including safety, in the presence of disturbances, including exceptional disturbances. And this is exactly what happens if I do this. I introduce chaos in the sentence, in the order of the letters. And you still read it and understand it perfectly well. Your reading process is resilient. And this doesn't mean that you don't need rules or procedures anymore. It's exactly the opposite. Because if you are able to read this, it's because you are very well mastering the language. If you ask a 5-year-old or 6-year-old child to read it, he or she will be totally unable. So you need to be very, very competent to be able to master the uncertainty, the disorder in the world. So it's not, what was the expression this morning? It's not safety anarchy at all. It's almost the opposite. So how do you get this? How do you get this capacity? There are some challenges behind this. The first one is that there is a trade-off, unescapable trade-off again, between optimality of the system and resilience, or brittleness, in other words. If you are totally adapted to your environment, you're very bad at adapting yourself to a different environment. So there is a trade-off between adaptation and adaptability. And this is the curve that you have here. So when you say better, faster, cheaper, and so on, you're climbing the curve from adaptability to adaptation. You're making your system more and more adapted to the environment, the current local environment. And you're losing adaptability. And ultimately, the question is, will it be safer? Not an easy question. The answer is yes and no. It will be safer within the domain of design for uncertainty, and it will be more and more brittle outside. So it's at the same time apparently safer, and in reality, not safer at all. It's exactly the same for the polar bear. It's extremely well, impressively well adapted to its environment. I don't understand how they can survive in this kind of environment. But if you increase the average temperature by 1 degree or 2 degrees, they disappear as a species. So they are extremely well adapted, extremely brittle, fragile, against any variation of the conditions. And this is what we are doing. We are designing polar bear organizations, more and more efficient in a very strict domain, more and more exposed to disasters outside. It may not be a good idea to do this again and again. And it doesn't mean that there is one good solution for this. Actually, there is no one methodology, one strategy to make a system safe. I won't have the time to elaborate on this, but basically, any risk management system has to cope with 2 main questions: how much anticipation, how much predetermination I have, and how much control on my people do I have, on the behaviors of my people. Internal order, external order management. And you can very quickly have 4 regions in this landscape, and you will find here with high level of anticipation and high level of control on the staff, most of the high-risk industries, with a very hierarchical, centralized, and procedure-based system. But you also have people in all the other areas, including the left up one, which is typically the emergency organization people, the fire brigades and so on. So this leads to a different vision of virtually everything. The way to design a safe system, the way to manage a system to make it safe, the way to design procedures and the role of procedures, the way to think of training, and the way to learn from events. It's limited time, so I don't have really the time to go into the details. But for example, the training should include exposure to fundamental surprise. You need to expose your people to something they don't understand, they have never seen before, they cannot understand. Not to teach them how to do it next time, but to teach them how to cope with this kind of situation. When you've lost understanding, when you don't understand anymore, what can you do? That's a very, very key issue. If you look at the recent catastrophes that we had in the different domains, it's a key issue. And as an illustration of this, we have 3 minutes left, so maybe we can look at this video. You all have seen this ditching in the Hudson River by US Air in 2009. Just a brief comment before the video. You can see the passengers on the wings. How many of them have a safety jacket? None. Interesting. Anytime you take a flight, you are briefed about how to use your emergency safety jacket. This time it could have been useful. This is extremely rare, but they didn't use it. That's interesting. But this is an extraordinary success. So it means success is not necessarily compliance. Okay? Can we try to start the video? Yes. So you see this is a computer-based reconstruction of the flight. The flight is taking off from
1549, contact Squadron Connect. Good day.
This is the controller's voice, and you will hear the captain's voice.
1549, 700, landing 5,000.
This one. And the communication between the captain and the first officer are not recorded.
Contact, I maintain 1,
but they are written
maintain 1, 5,000, cactus 1549.
On the screen in the back. So they are climbing. It's a nice weather, nice day, nice flight. Everything is fine. And in a few moments, they will hit a flock of big birds, Canada geese, which are outside the specification of the engines. Each engine will ingest more than 2 or 3 birds. We don't know exactly. And this will totally destroy the engines. You have on the left, on the right, on the top, the altitude of the aircraft.
Every day.
And the speed just below.
Here, Charlie 2760 is 5,000, turning your right to 150. Charlie 2760, climb maintain 10,000.
The collision will happen just now.
Charlie 2760.
So they start a checklist. Dual engine failure. There is a checklist for this. Everything is anticipated officially.
Cactus 1549, turn left heading 270. This is Cactus 1539. Hit birds. We've lost thrust on both engines, returning back towards LaGuardia. Okay, you need to return to LaGuardia. Turn left heading up 220. 220. Tower, stop your departures. Got emergency returning. It's 1529. He bird strike. He lost all engine. He lost the thrust in the engines. He's returning immediately.
Cactus 1529. Which engines?
He lost thrust in both engines. He said.
Got it.
Cactus 1529. If we can get it for you, do you want to try to land 1013?
We're unable. We may end up in the Hudson.
Charlie 2760. Turn left 070.
070. Charlie 2760.
Hi, Cactus 1549. It's going to be left traffic to runway 31.
Unable.
Okay, what do you need to land? Cactus 1549, runway 4 is available if you want to make left traffic to runway 4.
Idiot, I'm not sure we can make any runway. What's over to our right? Anything in New Jersey, maybe Teterboro?
Okay, yeah, off your right side is Teterboro Airport. You want to try to go to Teterboro?
Yes.
Teterboro, Empire, actually, LaGuardia Departure guy, emergency inbound.
Hey, guys.
Cactus 1529 over the George Washington Bridge, wants to go to the airport right now.
Wants to go to our airport. Check. Does he need assistance?
Yes, it was a bird strike. Can I get him in for runway 1?
Runway 1, that's good.
Cactus 1529, turn right 280, you can land runway 1 at Teterboro.
We can't do it.
Okay, which runway would you like at Teterboro?
We're going to be in the Hudson.
I'm sorry, say again, Cactus? All right. Kelly 2760, contact New York 126.8.
26.8, Joey 27.6.
Cactus 15.9, radar contact is lost. You also got Newark Airport up at 2 o'clock in about 7 miles.
The controller is still doing the best job he can do.
Eagle 5 4718, turn left thing 210.
210, 4718. I think he said he was going in the Hudson.
Cactus 1529, Houston. Cactus 1529, if you can, you got runway 29 available at Newark up at 2 o'clock in 7 miles. Eagle 5 4718, climb maintain 12000.
Okay, 1,000 and even 5 at 280.
Eagle 5 4718, I'm sorry, I missed that. Say again.
And we're up to 12,000, 280 and
Okay, thank you. Eagle 5 4718, turn left 220.
That's it. Thank you.